Should you script your podcast episodes, or is it better to outline? Maybe the method you're using right now is good for you, but is it good for your listeners? Podcast hosts are 7 times more influential than TV media influencers, celebrity influencers, and social media influencers. But just because you hit publish on a podcast episode doesn't mean that you have influence. So in this episode, we're going to talk about what you actually need to build real influence as a podcast host and help you decide whether scripting or outlining your episodes is the best way to go about achieving it. Welcome to Insider Secrets to a Top 100 podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Elmer. Let's make your business bingeworthy. We had a listener who sent me a DM on Instagram the other day asking me, Courtney, is it better to script or is it better to outline? I'm scripting right now, but should I be outlining? Is there an advantage to doing one over the other? What are the pros and cons? Which, if you're not following me, I'm over on Instagram at the Courtney Elmer. Send me all the podcast questions you got. I love getting questions like this because this is a valid question. Scripting versus outlining. Some shows do really well and they are totally scripted. Other shows have a loose outline to follow and they do equally well. And this particular person was struggling when it comes to outlining. But then they were also struggling with scripting because even though scripting was more of a comfort zone, they were running into time constraints. It was time consuming. It was really difficult to get a script dialed in for longer episodes. On the flip side of that, we've had other clients who find a script way too conforming. But when they outline, it makes it harder for them to stick to one topic in each episode because they wind up veering off, or they're going off on tangents, or they're actually sitting down to record and suddenly they're like, oh my gosh, their brain goes blank and they're like, I had an outline here, but I don't remember what I was going to say when I was outlining this, which inevitably creates episodes that either are too broad, too general, or lacks a clear focus. And some podcast experts will sit here and they will tell you what to do. For example, scripting is better. You should definitely script. Or outlining is better. You should outline because that's what they do and that's what works for them. And so I'm not here today to tell you what to do. I'm here today to help you shift your focus from where it is right now, which is scripting or not to script, because that is not the question. Because when you focus too much on the words that you say, it keeps you from being able to deliver those words in a way that connects with your audience. And building influence as a podcast host is not about what you say, but about how you say it that allows you to build that influence. And even deeper than that trust, because influence is a result of trust. It is a byproduct of trust. So at the end of the day, if you are podcasting because you want to be influential, you have a message you want to share, and you want to build a movement around that message, then how you deliver the content you deliver matters more than you think. And it matters more than how you are framing that content, whether it is in a script or in an outline. Because in order to create real influence and deeper than that, trust as a podcast host, that comes through your voice. And so by the end of this episode, you're going to walk away feeling so much more confident on how to show up to the mic, script or not, because you're going to realize that building influence as a podcast host matters less about the words and more about how you say the words. And I love this question. In fact, this kind of struck home for me because I used to be a hardcore script every word kind of a girl. And there was definitely a much deeper belief there for me that if I didn't say the right words, then people weren't going to see me as an expert. Or if I didn't say the right thing, or if I didn't sound smart, or if I didn't say it in a way that wasn't offensive, because, we don't want to offend anybody, that people wouldn't see me as a thought leader. And guess what? It was a self-fulfilling prophecy because I was so focused on the words and what to say that listeners didn't see me as a thought leader because I was missing the one key thing that makes people see you as an expert or a thought leader, which is confidence in yourself. And so the reason that I was so hung up on scripting and crafting these excellent episodes was because I lacked confidence. And guess what? No amount of scripting could ever hide that in my voice. Because the only thing that listeners care about when listening to a podcast is feeling connected to you, the host. That's why they listen. If they don't feel connected, you've lost them. How do we connect? Through our voices. And this applies especially in podcasting, which was and always will be an audio-first medium. I know that we have this dawning of video podcasting happening right now. But this screen is a distraction because there is a lot that you can do to engage listeners on camera, to keep them watching. But all of that, though, is a distraction from the real thing that you need to build the trust that's required to convert listeners to clients. Connection. Engagement and connection are not the same thing. There's a lot you can do to keep people engaged, but engagement doesn't drive sales. Connection does. Think about how you normally connect with someone in the real world. Think of a real world scenario. You go to a conference, you meet a ton of people. Some of them you don't think twice about. You don't feel a connection with them at all. Others, maybe you feel like you could maybe like that person if you got to know them a little better or hang out with them a little bit more. But maybe one or two people that you met at that event, you have an instant connection with. Like you just click. There's no question about it in your mind either. You just click and you form that connection. What did you have to go on, though, to form that connection? Maybe part of it was how the person looks, like where they're from, perhaps similarities that you have in common. Maybe they made you laugh right out the gate with something that they said that made them just instantly relatable. Or maybe you were impressed by the way they interacted with you or with others. Now I want you to imagine you're talking to that person, but it's on the phone. You know, the old-fashioned phones. My son, we went to an estate sale about a week ago and literally walking through this big, beautiful old mansion. And there is an old-fashioned, and I'm saying old-fashioned like I'm dating myself, okay? I remember this era of phones, but you remember the phones that used to hang on the wall with a cord? And guess what? My 6-year-old walks over and he's like, Mom, what is this? And literally the whole people that were in the room just like erupt in laughter because we were like, oh my goodness, wow, what a departure from the way that we have grown up. Okay, so think about these old-fashioned phones, right? And you're talking to that person over the phone, not Zoom. Nope. You've got no conference energy to go by. You've got no visual anchors like what they're wearing or how they look or how white their teeth are. You've got nothing else to go by what they say and how they say it. And how they say what they say is going to be the thing that makes you feel connected to them or not. I have been on the phone with salespeople where I could not get off the phone fast enough. And I've been on the phone with salespeople who I actually could have talked to for another hour just about life stuff because they made that much of an impression on me and built that much rapport and trust. So what's the difference then if both of those salespeople were following a script or an outline? Doesn't matter. It all boiled down to how they said what they said. So when you strip everything else away, the fancy cameras, the flashy captions on the screen, the quick video cuts and the video effects and the sound effects and anything and everything else you can think of that keeps someone engaged if they're watching and listening, what are you left with if they're listening only? Your voice. And again, this matters 10 times more in an audio-first medium. I know there are plenty of people out there right now trying to turn you into a YouTuber, aka a video podcaster, quote unquote. But podcasting is an audio-first medium. So I have worked with voice coaches through the years because if you go back in time with me to when I was 9 years old, my mom told me, Courtney, your mouth is what gets you in trouble. Go to your room. I can remember this like yesterday. And my mom was trying to teach me to be respectful because I was a very sassy, very outspoken, and very opinionated 9-year-old. And I was not afraid to let you know what I thought about whatever it was. And so my mom was like, this is not respectful. This is not how you can talk to adults. And so she would tell me this all the time. Courtney, your mouth is what gets you in trouble. But one day it just sunk in. It just hit different. And I was standing in the kitchen and I was watching her wash dishes and I was mouthing off about something. And she looks at me and she's like, Courtney, this is the last time I'm going to say, your mouth is what gets you in trouble. Go to your room. Go to your room. Your mouth gets you in trouble. And it just hit me. And I remember walking down, we had this long hallway to get to my room. And I'm walking down this very long hallway and I'm just like walking and I can picture it. I can remember this. And it was like, suddenly there was something that shifted within me that caused me to believe in that moment and for the next 20 plus years thereafter that nobody cared what I had to say. And that kept me from being able to connect with people throughout the majority of my life until I started doing work on this both inwardly and outwardly and the voice habits that I had manifested because of that belief. So I was working with these voice coaches and both coaches at different times in my journey told me, Courtney, you need to get away from the script. The script is keeping your listeners from connecting with you. I would script every word and the script was keeping you listening right now from feeling connected to me because I was so focused on the words. I was so focused on being polished and being professional and presenting myself to the world in a certain way that wasn't really authentic. In fact, I had a major cringe moment this week because I went and YouTube, I haven't thought about YouTube in eons, but apparently I've had a YouTube channel since 2015. If you were one of the 104 subscribers to that channel, thank you very much for following me there. And the lack of content that I have posted, I hope has inspired you there, right? Because YouTube is the one place where I'm like, I don't really feel comfortable with YouTube. Well, guess what? Now everyone's like, well, you have a podcast, you need to be on YouTube. And so now I'm trying to understand if and how YouTube fits into my strategy. And more importantly, to understand if and how YouTube needs to fit into an overall podcast strategy so that I can inform and guide our clients who want to be on YouTube. So I went back into my YouTube this week and I was pretty embarrassed. I will admit to you, it was major cringeworthy moment because I had so many videos on there of this girl who I'm looking at her and I just felt so much compassion for her because I'm like, who are you trying to be right now? And for who? It was not me. It was not the me that you hear today, right now, or the me that you see on my Instagram, or if you know me in real life is not the me that you know in real life. And I just felt sad for her because she was trying so hard, but she was trying too hard. And so this really gets me to the point of this episode, which is if you're podcasting, why are you podcasting? What's your goal? This why needs to be the same kind of why that gets you out of bed in the morning to show up to your desk and to work your business. It has to go that deep to get you to show up to the mic week after week after week. You know, and I'll ask people, why are you podcasting? Like, oh, well, I want to grow my audience. Oh, I want to build my authority. I want to get clients. Great, cool. Why do you want that? What does growing an audience allow you to do? What does that give you? Getting more clients, what does that allow you to do? What does that give you? Why is that important to you? And these are the questions that as a podcast host or a business owner who podcasts that you need to be asking yourself. Your initial answer is not going to be the deeper why that keeps you going when you feel discouraged. So if you have not figured out what that deeper why is, you need to figure that out. And these are the questions. Okay, I want to grow an audience. Why? Why do you want that? What does that give you? And why is that important to you? Ask yourself those questions until you have exhausted all resources and you can't answer anymore because the answer is the answer. For me, I have an internal driver of why I podcast and I have an external driver of why I podcast, and having both is important. The internal driver is because given my voice history, podcasting is a way for me to challenge myself every day to show up and use my voice to help others, to use my voice to create meaningful change in the world. And in doing so, to help others through the vehicle of podcasting, use their voices to create meaningful change in the world. So it's not necessarily about growing an audience or being seen as this thought leader, or building a big podcast or being influential or making a lot of money. There's a deeper reason that you're doing what you do. And so once you know what that is, now the simple question is, okay, well, what do you need to fulfill on that why? Chances are you're going to need listeners, and those listeners are going to have to trust you. And to do that, they need to feel connected to you. So how do you do that? How do you build connection? Again, not through what you say, but how you deliver it. So right now, if you're scripting your episodes, unless your show is part of a big network and you have specific network requirements to meet, kind of like the HOA in your neighborhood, or you've got a director for your show who requires you to script to make sure that the storyline and the pacing aligns with the whole creative vision, like in a narrative style podcast or a documentary style podcast, where every little detail matters to the bigger picture. Or unless your podcast involves sensitive or complex topics where accuracy really matters, like legal issues or true crime or public policy. Or unless your show is very complex and heavily produced, kind of like a radio show, or you're handcuffed by advertising and sponsorship commitments, and you have to script their segments to meet your contractual obligations and avoid misrepresenting their brand. Scripting every episode is, generally speaking, not going to be your friend for building connection. And even in these instances, when there is a script, there's the script and there's how the host delivers the script. It's no different in acting. There's a huge difference in a soap opera where people are pretty much just reading lines and there's some, dramatic music playing in the background versus a show like Lost. How you say what you say matters. So if you're scripting right now and the thought of recording an episode without the safety net of your script makes you want to crawl under the covers and hide, believe me, I get it. Head to the show notes, go listen to episode 236, where I walk you through my high converting episode framework. What this is it is a framework that will allow you to have the structure that you need so that you don't ramble, you don't veer off topic, you don't wind up, talking about something totally different than what the episode is supposed to be about. And it's an episode that will ultimately help you convert those listeners wherever you are sending them, onto your email list, into your programs, affiliate marketing stuff, whatever that might be. And it'll give you the structure that you need, but it will also allow what might be missing right now, which is your personality to come through. This is so important. So my hope for you is that this episode framework will become your new safety net. Play with it, experiment with it, give it a try. If it's not working for you and you're like, I want to make it work, DM me on Instagram and let me know. I'm here to help. Because if you have a niche podcast on a niche topic, and you're podcasting to teach others about something, and your show is educational, or you're a business owner who's podcasting, both to position yourself as an expert in your niche and to grow an audience and to convert that audience to leads and sales, you do need structure. Structure is necessary. Focus around a singular topic per episode is necessary. But an exact script, a word-for-word script, is usually not. And usually what happens is when you script word for word, it will chain you to that script. And it will keep you from being able to connect with your listeners because your focus won't be on your listener. It will be on the script and on the words. So if connection matters to you more than anything else, then the question of should you be scripting is a question only you can answer. But if you're podcasting because you want to be influential, you have a message to share, you want to build a movement around your message, I have found that ditching the script has allowed me to get one step closer to doing exactly that. And maybe this doesn't mean ditch the script entirely. Maybe it means having a structured outline where a few parts inside that outline, you might have something that you really do want to make sure that you say the way it needs to be said. For example, if I am doing some kind of language pattern or psychology shifting pattern through NLP or language where what we're really looking to do is help shift beliefs around a popular or common topic, I might script something out or write a full sentence because I want to make sure that I say that the way it needs to be said. But I'm also very hyper aware of how I say it and not just delivering the words or focusing on the words, but focusing on how the words naturally want to come out of my body. And that's the key. That's the sweet spot. If you can get to that point, whether you've got a full script, which usually doesn't help you get to that point, in my opinion, now that I have learned what I have learned, but whether that's a script, whether that's an outline, whether that's a hybrid where it's an outline with a few sentences, maybe scripted out, the goal is not necessarily to pick, okay, scripting or not scripting. It is to say, what is going to be the best option for me to allow me to shine through, to allow my personality to come through? And whatever that is for you is going to be the best path forward. Because once you have got those deep audience connections down, you are building know, like, and trust with everyone who encounters your podcast. Then we can talk about scaling your show. It does no good to put the cart before the horse. And a lot of times we'll have people who come up and they're like, okay, I want to grow my podcast. I want to grow my audience. But right now they're having problems attracting and retaining the audience that they have. So you always want to focus on dialing in that connection piece and that trust piece first. And then once you have that dialed in, then we can look at a number of different strategies that we can build together to create a custom strategy to grow and scale your show. One way to do it is through paid ads. But spoiler alert, most podcasts who go the paid ad route do this backwards. So in the next episode, I've got a special guest joining us to unpack some of the biggest mistakes that podcasters make when it comes to paid ads and how you can avoid them so that you can get the most out of your ad spend budget and actually grow a loyal and deeply connected audience. That's all coming up next to help you make your business binge-worthy.